Primetime local news, serving the Lakeland and Midwest regions.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime Local News. There are 5 new cases of COVID-19 in Saskatchewan. 3 of the new cases are in the central region, 1 in the Saskatoon area and 1 in the south. 75 cases are considered active. 8 people are in hospital with 2 in intensive care. Close to 800 people have recovered. The Scoop has recently decided to help the Lloydminster Rescue Squad by giving them all the proceeds they receive from selling their superhero flavor. The ice cream shop is planning out 7 different flavors to highlight the rescue squad over the rest of the summer. Every week, all the proceeds that go from the one flavor will go towards the fundraiser to help the rescue squad upgrade their equipment.
We started out with a superhero because we wanted to do a tribute to our local superheroes. We have the next 2 planned out, and then the final 4 we haven't quite decided yet. I think we're going to collaborate a little bit more with Rescue Squad on that one.
Every year, the Scoop chooses a charity to support, and this year they chose a local organization when they found the fundraiser on the Lloydminster Rescue Squad's Facebook page.
And we also have a donation jar for people that don't like the flavor per se, or they don't want ice cream when they come over, and they just donate directly to the jar, and 100% of those donations go to the fundraiser as well.
Since starting last Sunday, they have sold about 30 scoops of the superhero flavor and say the community support has been great even through the stormy weather. The Lloydminster Interval Home Society is now able to expand their shelter to help more people in need. Connor Chan has more.
I'm joined with Charlene Rovine, the COO of the Lloydminster Interval Home Society. So Charlene, first off, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Connor, for inviting me to meet with you.
Now, there was a completion with the second phase of expansion, which expanded the amount of rooms for the shelter. Just talk about the process of getting that done, as well as what it will mean ultimately for the shelter.
Yeah, so we had known all along that we've been wanting to build a new shelter with the amount of capacity that we've had over the last few years. We noted that, with the amount of turnaways that we've had, that we wanted to increase our shelter beds. So before we, with the need to have more rooms, we realized our dream of building a new shelter is still a little ways away. So we realized that we could utilize the space that we had in our shelter by removing our offices. So that was our first phase. So we moved our offices over to the location where our youth center is at, and we renovated those spaces in the offices to back to bedrooms. So now we're able to expand from 21 beds to 33 beds. So that's where we are at right now with our second phase, and we are all completed and now have those rooms available.
Where did the money come from to get those renovations done to be able to expand the amount of rooms?
So we had a great campaign started. It's called Bridging the Gap. And part of that is to bridge that gap between the amount of turnaways that we had to, that we knew that we were having, to be able to really accept those women and their families into the shelter. So the campaign has been running for some time now to help manage those renovations, both for our first phase and our second phase. The campaign had a goal of $415,000, and we're at about 74% there, but we were able to complete those renovations at this time still.
Now that we're in the phase 4.2 of the Reopen Saskatchewan plan, has there been an increase in clients coming into the shelter, as well as also just give a little bit of an update on day-to-day operations now for the Interval Home Society?
Yeah, so when we first, back in March, April there, when things were starting to shut down, we noticed that there was a decline in people coming to the shelter. And at first, and we noticed that that was across Alberta. There was fewer people coming and accessing those services. But now as things are been lifting, right across Alberta, we're starting to see the increase in calls again. And actually we're back to capacity. So we have lots of families accessing our shelter. Even prior to that though, when there was a bit of a slowdown to the emergency shelter, we've seen an increase with our outreach services. So people were still accessing services through our outreach program.
Now, I know fundraising continues to be a big part for the Interval Home Society. I know there have been some events that were canceled, unfortunately, due to the COVID pandemic. Talk about some of the current fundraisers that are going on right now.
Yeah, so one of our major fundraisers that we had back in May had to be postponed. Our Dreaming Out Loud ball that we have for children and their families had to be postponed. So we had Cody from Maz Entertainment approach us. He always supports us through that campaign or through that fundraiser. And so he come up with this great idea of having an outdoor cinema, backyard cinema. So that's currently what we have happening right now. So with that one, we have Cody coming and setting up a movie screen and offering his DJ services. And then we also have Spiros and Lloydminster District and Co-op on board as well to supply pizzas and snacks and beverages. So people can reach out and purchase tickets for that. They're $10 a piece, and they can have up to 10 to 15 people in their backyards and have a nice little party for themselves, whether it's like with friends or family or have it as a kids party. It's really open to all ages. So it'll be a lot of fun. And the draw is happening on August 4th. So all funds that are raised from that will come back to the society to help support all operations of the society.
And lastly, I know it's been tough times for a lot of organizations to raise funds, but just talk about how the community has supported the Interval Home Society during the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, you know what? We know how fundraising and how these are tough times for everyone. So we're just really fortunate that, our current donors, and we still have new donors that are wanting to support us. And so we continually see that support coming through. We're not as active, obviously, with fundraising, like with our Bridging the Gap campaign, just because we understand the conditions that are on everyone right now. But certainly we're so appreciative of those people who are out there that recognize the need and still want to support us. So we're really grateful to those individuals.
Well, Charlene, I really appreciate your time, and thank you very much for joining me and giving us an update on the Interval Home Society. So thank you.
No, thank you, Connor. Take care.
We are now less than a month and a half away until the start of the 2020 NHL playoffs. Jace Mackey chats with Evan Kenny on how the Canadian clubs could do.
Joining me today is Evan Kenny. We're going to be talking a little bit of sports, and the big news in the sports world right now is a return of the NHL playoffs. Now, Evan, there's a handful of Canadian teams that are going to be taking part. So can you just talk a bit about how this is going to affect Canadian hockey?
Yeah, this is awesome for Canadian hockey. It's been a long time since a Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup. It goes all the way back to the Canadians back in the 90s. So for young players growing up, it's great to be able to watch, their team go into the playoffs, and it might get them more excited to keep playing. Like I said, this is the most Canadian teams in the playoffs since 2017. Back in 2017, the Ottawa Senators were still good and making the playoffs. There was 5 Canadian teams in total versus 6 this year. So yes, I think this is very good for Canadian hockey, and I think only benefits can come when it comes to a hockey perspective out of this.
So is there a Canadian team that you think is going to surprise people the most?
Yeah, there's a handful of them. I mean, you kind of obviously expect Edmonton, Calgary, Toronto. They're the 3 highest ranked Canadian teams. But I do think Toronto could surprise some teams. They've always struggled, especially when playing the Boston Bruins in the playoffs. But they're a young team. They're a fast team. And they have Frederik Andersen in their net. So when you combine all 3 of those, especially in a short time span, when most of the players are cold, first time on the ice in a while, I think they could find success very quickly. Another team that I think it could be up in the air with, but could surprise some teams, is the Winnipeg Jets. Now, their D-core is really hurting, especially after the loss of Tyler Myers and Dustin Byfuglien during free agency and whatnot last season. So they aren't quite as experienced as previous years, and they're not as high of ranked of a team as previous years. But I think their combination of size, skill, and goaltending, again, could surprise some teams. And then finally, for Canadian teams, I think the Vancouver Canucks will be the biggest shock. It's tough to see which way they're going. They play the Minnesota Wild in the first round, which I think they can handle, especially with their goalie, Jacob Markstrom. He posted a .918 save percentage, which is just about as good as Connor Hellebuck who, very well could win the Vezina this year and is better than Andrei Vasilevsky, who won the Vezina last season. So I think the Vancouver Canucks could surprise some teams, but it's tough to see how far they'll go.
And just finally, what do you predict will be the end result for each team?
Yeah, it's tough to really say. Like I said, bounces go each way. Playoffs is a very tough thing. It's a different beast than the regular season. So some teams that might have done super well in the regular season could be slumping here. For the Canadian teams, I have the Montreal Canadiens losing in 5 to Pittsburgh. I know that's a little more games than a lot of people could think, but with Shea Weber and Carey Price on your back end, I think anything is possible, and especially in these short series, losing 3 games to 2 is very realistic for Montreal. I have Toronto winning in 5 versus Columbus for their series. We saw Columbus last year stir up the playoffs, knocking off the number 1 seed Tampa Bay Lightning, and I think they'll give Toronto similar troubles as Toronto and Tampa are similar teams. John Tortorella, head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets, likes a tight team, so you know that they're going to be positionally sound. It's more a matter of will Columbus have the legs under them. Toronto winning in 5 there. Winnipeg and Calgary are facing each other in the first round. This will be, I think, the closest matchup, at least on the west side. Winnipeg, like I mentioned earlier, if they get the right bounces, things could go their way. But Calgary did finish higher, and I do like Calgary's defense led by Mark Giordano much more. I have Calgary in 4 games, but that one's really a toss-up. Vancouver, I have winning in 3 games versus Minnesota. Minnesota just lost their best player, Jason Zucker, in a trade to Pittsburgh at the end of the season, and it didn't look like Minnesota was going to make the playoffs whatsoever. So it was probably the right move before COVID hit. Now, after that loss, I think Vancouver will handle Minnesota quite easily. And then finally, Edmonton, the hosts. I have Edmonton winning in 4 versus Chicago. Chicago does have Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane, but I don't think they're deep enough to hold off McDavid and Draisaitl for an entire series.
Well, thanks for taking some time to talk with me today, Evan. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes because, of course, once you play the games, you don't know what's going to happen. So thanks for taking some time to talk to me today, Evan.
Thanks, Jace.
Now our Connor Chan will take a look at your weather forecast.
All right, thanks very much, Jasmine. Taking a look at temperatures right now, still sitting at 22 degrees right now. 22 also in North Battleford. As we move out into the west there, 20 and 21 for Edmonton at 20 and Rocky Mountain House at 20 as well. Red Deer sitting at 21 along with Edson. 23 degrees out in Jasper and 19 degrees right now in Whitecourt. Athabasca sitting at 23 degrees along with Cold Lake right now. North Battleford sitting at 22 degrees currently. 23 in Saskatoon, 22 for Melfort, and 21 in Prince Albert with 20 degrees out in Meadow Lake. As we move over into the northern areas, 16 degrees in La Loche and Buffalo Narrows, 18 in La Roche, 19 degrees for Flin Flon right now, 14 in Wollaston Lake, and 17 degrees right now in South End. Up further north in Uranium City and Stony Rapids, both sitting at 15 degrees. As we move over into northern Alberta, a little bit warmer in the further regions here. Peace River and Grand Prairie sitting at 22 degrees, 23 out in High Level, 21 degrees, in Slave Lake, and 16 for Fort McMurray. A little bit cooler in Fort Chipewyan, sitting at 14 degrees. Here's what we see in southern Alberta and Saskatchewan right now. 26 degrees for both Medicine Hat and Lethbridge, 21 for Calgary, 20 in Coronation, and 19 right now for Banff. Over in the southern Saskatchewan areas, again, fairly warm. They've continued that trend over the last couple of days there. 21 in Moose Jaw and Swift Current, 24 Regina, 26 degrees in Estevan, 22 for Yorkton, and 21 also out in Kindersley. So as we take a look at what we can see across the country here, mostly cloud coverage in Regina with that 20-degree mark right now. 26 in Winnipeg with cloud coverage, lots of cloud coverage through most of the eastern provinces here. 24 in Quebec City, 24 in Toronto with a little bit of sun with that high 27, 9 degrees, in St. John's with some showers, 14 degrees in Halifax. As we move out further west, Vancouver with some sun and a little bit of cloud coverage at 22 degrees, 18 degrees up north in Yellowknife right now at 14 degrees, currently in Whitehorse. Edmonton sitting at 21 with mostly clouds and a bit of sun, where that could change because some showers are coming in from the southwest regions that could come into our area for tomorrow. Now here's what we could see tomorrow for our daytime high. 23 degrees for our daytime high, 24 in Maidstone, Vermilion, and Marwayne, 23 also out in St. Paul, Vegreville, and Edmonton, 24 for Bonnyville, 23 in Cold Lake, Pierceland, and Lac La Biche, 25 for Provost and Wainwright as well. North Battleford also sitting at 25 degrees, 24 in Meadow Lake, and 23 degrees for St. Walburg. Here's a look at what we could see over the next 7 days. 20 degrees on Friday. We have a 68% chance of some showers for tomorrow, though. And as we head into Saturday, 18 degrees the daytime high expected, 21 for Sunday, and 23 for Monday as we start to get back to some sun and some warmer temperatures there. 24 degrees on Tuesday with mostly sun and a few clouds there, with 22 degrees being the high. Also for Wednesday to wrap up that 7-day forecast, usually averaging around that 23-degree mark and 11 for the low. So we're right around ballpark right there, but we could see maybe up to 10 millimeters of rain for tomorrow for the bulk of it, and then we could see a little bit less on Saturday when we get the 63% chance of showers. But that's a look at your 7-day forecast. We'll have more primetime local news coming up after the break.
I'm joined here with Dr. Becky Newman with the Lloydminster Animal Hospital. Now, during COVID, a lot of people have spent a lot of time with their pets. Could we see now, as people are starting to head back to work and leave their pets alone more often, some anxiety in them?
We have joked around the vet clinic during COVID that I think a lot of dogs are living their best life. Their owners have been home every day. They're getting lots of exercise, lots of playtime, lots of snuggles. And I think whether your dog is a loyal companion that you've had for years, or whether this is a pandemic puppy that you got as a little bit of a project during COVID, I think all of this time has been great to really nurture that bond between you and your pet. But I think the concern is like, what's going to happen now that more businesses are reopening and people are starting to go back to work? And you may have done some training. You may have a dog who had a really good routine before, but that's all kind of gone out the window a bit. And with your new puppies, having spent so much time with them, maybe they're not used to being put in a crate or left alone or things like that. So I think when we talk about anxiety in dogs, it comes in a lot of forms, just like anxiety in people. It doesn't present the same way in every single dog. And normally what we see in our anxious dogs would be a dog that, he pants a lot. He just can't settle down. He's pacing. He's vocalizing. And then, of course, that can progress to dogs who are being destructive because they're so anxious and they don't know what to do. And, we've all seen pictures of people who come home to their houses turned upside down, the cushions off the couch and the door frames chewed through and toys chewed through and electrical cords sometimes. There's a lot of, it could progress to a lot of things, but it can start off just with whining and pacing and salivating, things like that.
And you kind of mentioned, with the change of routine and everything, is those kind of the biggest reasons why this happens?
Yep, I think that routine is part of it. A lot of these dogs haven't really been left alone, right? And because people have been home, they haven't been putting them in a crate like they maybe would have when they went to work, or leaving them home in a quiet space. And I've talked to lots of dog people who have been making sure that they do maintain that routine during COVID, even if they're just putting their home. They might even just be making supper, but they're still putting their dog away in their crate or the room that they normally spend time in alone, so that they're still used to that and they're not getting out of that routine. But I think part of it too is that during COVID, dogs have been getting more walks per day, more play sessions, learning new tricks, and that leads to using up physical energy and using up mental energy too. And when these dogs are tired, a good dog is a tired dog, and they're more able to rest and relax and sleep better and be calmer when they've used all that energy.
And would you say the signs or the way that dogs or other animals react really is dependent on the dog? It's not always the same?
Yeah, it's very much that way. I do compare it a lot to mental health in people. And, mental health is a disease in people, and we're talking about it more and more. And we have to realize that mental health is a disease in dogs as well. And they can have the same imbalances that people can. And so how anxiety presents, it can be a whole cascade of things, from a dog who, like I say, simply just maybe pants more and paces a little bit, maybe barks, for the first little bit when you leave the house, but then they can calm down. But then I do think that there are dogs who do benefit from, having a consultation with a behavior consultant and with a veterinarian, and that there may be medications that will work for some dogs in conjunction with training. I think that there are dogs, lots of dogs, that just training alone and teaching them some ways to enjoy going into their crates and playing games, to teach them to go into their crate and to settle down in there. That'll work for a lot of dogs. And there's also some really natural products. There's pheromone collars that release a calming scent for dogs. There's treats that increase the levels of serotonin that calm them. There's foods, actually. There's a food called Calm that can calm these dogs as well. And that's good for a lot of dogs, but there are dogs farther on the spectrum who may actually need a veterinary consultation, talking about medications we use that will just kind of put them in a better state of mind, that they can learn new behaviors better.
And what would you say, you kind of mentioned it throughout the interview, what would you say are some of the biggest signs of separation anxiety and anxiety?
So, like I say, there can be a range, but I think panting, salivating, barking, whining, destructive behaviors, chewing on things, urinating in the house, a dog that is house trained. And all of a sudden you come home and they've urinated or defecated in the house, and that's not something that they would normally do. That can be a sign that they've been really anxious while you've been gone as well.
For pet owners in the community, what are some of the bigger tips you have to help them and help their pets during this time?
We have some really good people in our community that can probably help you out with that. There are a couple places in town that do doggy daycare. So if you think your dog just needs some time, burning off a bit more energy, interacting with other dogs, doggy daycare might be right for your dog, at least, a couple times a week to give them an outing. There's also dog walkers in town who can come to your home, take your pet for a walk. We have a list of people who offer these kinds of services at the vet clinic if anybody wants to call in. And sometimes that's just enough to get these dogs a little bit more of the exercise. But now that you're back at work, you don't have as much time to do. And there also are some behavior consultants in our area that you may be able to work with as well. And it's never too late to start crate training your puppy, or leaving your puppy or your dog home for short periods of time and making it fun and having them know that you're always coming back. And you can give them, treats, Kongs that are stuffed with all sorts of good things that can occupy them when you're leaving the house for a short period of time, so they might not even miss you. There are so many things that we can do for training in these dogs, and just don't be afraid to reach out and talk to veterinarians or behavior consultants and dog trainers about it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Newman.
You're very welcome.
Now we will be taking a look at your pet pad pictures. Thank you to everyone who did submit them to our Facebook page, and we will be giving away a pet pad gift card on Friday.
We want to see your pets. Send photos of your pet and their name to our Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram to have them featured on Pet of the Day. Your name will be entered into a weekly draw for a gift certificate from the Pet Pad.
Furniture set and design supplied by Furniture Gallery and Furniture House, downtown Lloydminster.
Well, I'm joined today with Cal Wakeland from Wild Side Outdoors. So Cal, first off, it is bear season because, people are going out camping and hiking. So what are some of the best things that campers can do to avoid bears when they do go out?
Just to start off with, first of all, our store has got customers coming in 8 to 10 times a day complaining about the amount of bear activity that's happening. And so I try to talk to them, explain what to do and all that kind of stuff. We do carry stuff. So the number one thing to carry is bear spray. I got that stuff in the store. This year, for instance, has been the best year for bear spray that we've ever had. There is an unbelievable amount of bears out there, and they're everywhere. Campsites, farmers' yards, guys are out fishing along the river and they're constantly getting bothered by bears. I had a lady come in the other day and she was in her garden on her knees picking weeds, and a bear walked across the other end of the garden just 20 feet from her. And so, it's been a really big issue this year, especially. So, like I say, the bear spray works really, really well. They have to be close. This thing shoots out to 30 feet, but I'll tell everybody, shoot it at 20 and closer and shoot them in the face, and then that will deter them. There's no doubt about it. Another one to use too, we got bear pens. So these things are a banger, and you shoot them out over top of their heads, and it gets out there 20, 30 feet also. And it's one big boom. It's like a gun going off over top of their head. And a lot of the times they'll disappear on that one too. I've been around bears a lot in my lifetime, a lot. And if you run on a bear, if a bear comes charging at you, you should never run. It turns you into prey instantly. The best thing you could do is start yelling and make yourself big. Throw your arms up in the air and start yelling and hollering, whoa, 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 whoa. And then all of a sudden, 99.9% of the time, they will stop. They do a lot of things called bluff charging. And the bluff charges usually stop at about 20, 25 feet, and then they'll stand their ground. Then usually they'll walk away. Keep in mind that a bear, if normally they see you, they don't want to stick around. They usually get gone. But of course, in the campsites and whatnot, they have issues there, and lots of food around and that kind of stuff. I have an incident where a customer come in, he was talking about a fridge that they had left outside. Big mistake. Don't leave anything that's got food in it. Don't leave it outside. Their camper and their deck and whatnot ended up getting ripped apart and that kind of stuff. So another thing to do for your campers out there, when you have your barbecues outside, you're asking for trouble, guaranteed. The best thing that brings a bear in is the smell of that cooked food. And they will have that barbecue laying on the ground, and they'll be all over your yard or your campsite or wherever, and they'll cause you some major grief. So keep all the food away from them. Keep it locked up, keep it where they can't get at it and that kind of stuff. Guys with barbecues, if you have a shed, put them in that shed every time you leave, because they will get on it.
What's the best thing for people to do to protect their campsite, to avoid attracting bears because of all the cooking or all the food that is being left out?
Same thing there. Keep it all inside of coolers and that kind of stuff, and put it away inside vehicles or that kind of thing. Back in the day, of course, tenters and all that kind of stuff, they hike their stuff up into the trees to make sure that the bears don't get a whiff of it and whatnot. Again, bears can climb trees, but at the same time, you get it high enough, that scent never gets to the ground. So therefore, the bears don't come around. But it is the best thing to do is get all of that food put away when you say you go to bed at night. Get it all put away inside your car or your camper, and leave no stuff outside. I know even kids out eating, say, an ice cream sandwich or something, and they throw that paper on the floor or on the ground. Again, they have a nose like you would never believe. They will come and check it out.
Now, if someone happened to be camping alone and they don't have bear spray per se with them, is there any number that they can call if they are at like a national park that can, give them some guidance or some assistance?
Yeah, you can. I tell you, they don't do a lot about it because, of course, that's their living grounds. That's where they live. And so, of course, the wardens don't do too awful much about it. If they're in a campsite or something like that, you get a hold of the wardens. The wardens will come out. 90% of the time, they'll never ever shoot them. They usually will set a bear trap up. And if they do catch them, then they take them out and into a different area, like quite a long ways away, and then they'll let them go. They do trank them too off and on if they are a problem bear. Most of the time they tag them to make sure that they know that if they're coming back, it's that same bear that's coming back, and then they'll trank them and take them somewhere else. But a lot of the times they don't kill them, they just get them out of there.
Well, Cal, I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining me today and giving us some great tips on how to protect ourselves when we go out camping or hiking. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
All right, taking one last look here at your 7-day forecast. 23 degrees tomorrow, the daytime high, where we possibly could see some showers with 68% chance there. 21 degrees on Friday, 18 on Saturday, 21 on Sunday as we start to get a bit more sun back into the mix there. 23 on Monday, 24 on Wednesday, and 23 on Wednesday. We could possibly see up to 10 millimeters tomorrow for those showers, then up less than 5 for Saturday. So tomorrow we could get the bulk of it for tomorrow, averaging around 23 is our daytime high and averaging around 11 for our daytime low.
Thanks for joining us for this edition of Primetime Local News. Have a great night.